Israeli military now confirming it shot down a drone launched from Gaza, marking the first time it has faced such a weapon in the current conflict with the terror group Hamas. Israel especially concerned because drones can evade Israel's sophisticated Iron Dome missile defense system and inflict casualties. Still, the rockets from Gaza keep coming, night and day, 24/7, targeting the Israeli homeland. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he will use any means necessary to stop the attacks. Backing up that threat, Israeli tanks and troops massing along the Gaza border, ready to invade if the order is given. KT McFarland, our Fox News national security analyst, with me now in studio, and good morning to you. First, Prime Minister Netanyahu from yesterday on this.
Here's the difference between us. We're using missile defense to protect our civilians, and they're using their civilians to protect their missiles. That's basically the difference. They're embedding these rockets that they're firing wholesale into our cities, terrorist rocketing, trying to kill as many as they can.
React to that and also this report of the drone.
When I've been to Israel, and I've been to the units where the pilots are, the Israeli pilots who, in an attack, would have to go bomb the areas where the Hamas missiles are, and they have said that every time they go, they get intelligence on the ground. They know if it's an apartment building, for example, where their people are. They drop flyers into that apartment building, into that neighborhood, saying, "Get out! We're going to destroy that building." They give the kind of warning to the civilians to get out. Hamas isn't doing that when they're firing rockets into Israel. They're trying to, hit, although not very successfully, trying to hit civilian areas.
A little more on that point. John McCain from Sunday talking about that very thing also.
Israel is being attacked by hundreds of rockets. Their people, a third of their population, has got about a 60-second warning. Picture the United States of America with a country contiguous to ours that we're being subjected to rocket attacks. So the restraint of the Israelis, in my view, is admirable.
He went on to say because there haven't been more Israeli casualties isn't because Hamas has not tried.
Oh, they've tried. They're just not very good at it. But the difference is, Bill, this is a cycle that we see every couple of years. It's a cycle where Palestinians provoke, Israel responds, Palestinians lob some rockets into Israel, Israel destroys the rocket sites. Everybody sort of takes a deep breath. It happens again a few years later when the Palestinians decide to provoke it. Palestinians get resupplied. Who do they resupply from? Iran. I think Iran is a much bigger footprint in this than anybody's willing to
Let me get to that. And also, they're getting supplies from Syria, too. We're now finding Syrian rockets that travel much further than they ever have before out of Gaza. You tweeted this morning, is this a diversion from the failed Iran nuclear talks? What do you mean by that?
Well, here's the thing. Why did the Palestinians provoke this crisis now? Why not a month ago? Why not 6 months from now? They provoked it by taking 3 teenagers and killing them. Why? What's the timing? At almost the same time that this Israeli-Palestinian crisis broke out, the supreme leader of Iran said, by the way, we're not dismantling any of our nuclear centrifuges. We need 10 times more than we already have. And that's at the same time that there are negotiations in Vienna now over Iran's nuclear program. I think that this was Iran telling its Hamas clients, why don't you cause a little problem over there so nobody notices what's really going on, which is Iran's nuclear program.
Well, okay, so that's going on now, and you got Secretary Kerry, who is negotiating this Iran deal that apparently is a bit tenuous at the moment. Perhaps to say the least, that might be an understatement. And there are those in the Middle East who are suggesting Secretary Kerry should stay away from the current conflict. Wasn't that part of the re-engagement a year ago this administration wanted to manage?
That was the thing. A year ago, the Secretary Kerry said his big objective in becoming Secretary of State was to solve the Palestinian-Israeli crisis once and for all. And he devoted a lot of attention and effort to it and was unsuccessful. I think he probably had his priorities misplaced. The biggest crisis in the Middle East, the biggest threat to world peace and to the region is if Iran gets nuclear weapons. And Iran has just shown the world that it is not going to dismantle its nuclear centrifuges, but the sanctions have been lifted. And the economic pressure on the part of the West and the United States businesses to lift those sanctions further will be overwhelming. At the end of the day, I don't think Iran needs a permanent deal. They got what they wanted in the first step, which is the U.S. would lift sanctions a little bit, and the rest of it, the market forces will take care of.
It's a lot to follow, but we will do our best with your help and your great experience.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, KT.